It's that time of year again. Football season has made its way to the forefront of American culture. I haven't been keeping track of it this season as I usually do, mostly because, well, you know, my Bears, they sorta suck. But to say it's captured the hearts of Americans would be an understatement to say the least. And with it fresh in people's minds, Cyanide Studios and Focus Home Interactive bring you the Warhammer 40k influenced Blood Bowl 2. Can the game's unique strategy mechanics carry it across the end zone for a score? Or will it be attempting to throw a Hail Mary of sorts as it attempts to rely solely on Lady Luck? Before I answer that, this key was obtained from evolve.pr for the purposes of review, but will not influence my opinion of the game in the end. Just imagine if rugby, the XFL, and Lord of the Rings came together to make a super sport of sorts, and you've got something close to Blood Bowl 2. The first comparison that is always made with this game is to the wonderful world of football, but the game is actually closer to rugby more than anything else. The basic rules of the game are as follows. Two teams attempt to get a pigskin ball into the opponent's end zone by any means necessary, an emphasis on any means. The game is turn-based and relies on the use of skills, strategy, and chance. Each turn, you'll tell all your available men to do specific actions on the field. You can run down the field, block other characters, and pick up the ball, to name a few. Each turn on offense, you get one chance to hand off the ball and one chance to pass the ball. On defense, you'll be able to move and attack with one player via a blitz, and you can always attempt a foul once per turn when the ref ain't looking. On offense or defense, you can move people into position or attack anyone who is adjacent to you. There are 8 turns and a half and 2 halves to play. Now, the game isn't an action or typical sports game as you may first think by looking at trailers. It's based off the popular tabletop game and plays as a strategy game. Your job is simple. Line up your guys to move the ball down the field on offense or to take away the ball on defense. The game's strategy element is very much like a chess game. In high-level play, you can't just consider this turn and your opponent's next turn. Coaches have to consider what blocking lanes they'll need to set up, how your opponent will attempt to counter those blocking lanes, and they need to have fallback strategies when things go awry. You'll need to consider players and their positions relative to one another as well, as those players can gang up on enemies to help each other in getting more dice to roll to better your odds of success on specific actions. You'll have to play to your team's strengths, which is where the different races come in. Each race in the game plays a bit differently, as each of them has a collection of classes and characters. Some characters excel in particular areas, but with downsides that complement them as well. For example, the High Elves make for a great passing team, but they'll lose when it comes to a straight up fight and brawl. The Chaos faction does well when focusing on enemies and knocking them down and out of the game, but they're actually rather weak at playing the actual ball. The Dwarves can take a beating and have a heavy emphasis on defense, but they're the slowest players in the game and can be beaten easily in a foot race. Each race may have a selection of class specialists like the Powerhouse Minotaur. You'll have to spend money and raise their levels up to unlock their true potential. Now look, strategy-wise, the game stands out from other games in the genre that I've played, and when the game is firing on all cylinders, it can be really fun. There's so many combinations of what can happen in a game. When the game has you reacting to everything going on, it'll give your brain an exercise of a lifetime. Looking over your skills, taking probabilities into account. The game can have 2 coaches going at each other and attempting to draw each other into traps, using that one blitz per turn to allow a player to move and attack the same time as a surprise assault. That blitz leading to a lane for others to block the ball holder with. There's just havoc that comes from every decision of this game, and I love it for that. There's a lot of variety in what can happen in the game, that's for sure. Even if you're a running team and that you barely pass, certain events in the game could force you into the air. If you're looking for chaos and matches that don't necessarily play the same, it's here. Weather can force you to choose a different strategy altogether. The other team may bribe a ref to look the other way while they foul you. Even though over time, you'll feel like you're playing the same game, in match, you'll have to react to what's going on around you. It adds to the excitement of the game, or cause your blood pressure to go through the roof. In terms of modes the game has, you have a campaign that you can play through a season with a human team. In that campaign, pre-scripted events will get you accustomed to the game as it teaches you the basics. However, it is a little bit facetious in the way it does it. Unfortunately, the way it plays at the start of the campaign and the end of the campaign is vastly different, so keep that in mind. Beyond that, you can create teams of your own players in solo or multiplayer leagues. You can customize your team by buying and upgrading players, or even getting sponsors for your stadium and cheerleaders to cheer you on. Now look, the major factor in your ability to enjoy Blood Bowl 2 comes down to these guys, dice. See, it's an adaptation of a tabletop game with dice mechanics, and because of that, there's an RNG element of the game. That RNG element will do well for some, but for some people, it's going to cause major frustration, especially for this game, because this game can be brutal with these rolls of the dice. See, what makes Blood Bowl 2 a different type of strategy game is how your strategy is affected by the roll of a dice. Almost everything, and I mean everything, has a dice roll, from picking up the ball, passing the ball, to even hidden rolls dealing with a player getting injured or not. And these dice will really affect how well things go for you in one big way: the ending of your turn. See, when you fail certain actions, most of them have your player going down to the ground or losing the ball. That means your turn is over. You may have 6 other members on the field who haven't gone yet, but it doesn't matter. Your turn is over. If you have a reroll you can spend on an action that will end your turn, you can spend it, but you can only do that once per turn. Now, that does change strategy a hell of a lot. You'll want to prioritize safe moves first, but then you may need to consider the ball and moving your characters before that, or opening a path for your players to get through. You can put together a strategy, but once you fail that first roll, boom, it's over. Characters that needed picking up? Nope, wait till next turn. Didn't get a chance to move your guy with the ball? Sorry, next turn is where it's at. And that's where I'm torn on the game. You see, I get why the game is like this. It wants you to think moves ahead and allow for real problems to develop when things don't go your way. If the game didn't have this mechanic, games could go on forever when you think about it, and frankly, no one really wants that. But on the flip side, the game is so punishing when a roll doesn't go your way, especially early on in the process. The best strategy in the world can be taken completely off the rails by the RNG. And when you're sitting across from a cold and calculating AI, that's really hard to swallow. You'll be unable to laugh off your bad luck at times, like the experience in a tabletop version, where you can see your opponent across from you. This can lead to some understandable frustration. Now look, skills can help with this. As your players grow and get better, they will be able to pick up skills in certain categories. This can range all over the place, from being able to dodge out of the way of certain types of tackles, or even following a player if they hit certain rolls. They may have abilities that allow them to re-roll under certain circumstances, or even be assured to pick up the ball. But you have to understand something about this. It may take you a long while for you to get them through that progression. The way your players grow in leagues and the like is through SPP points, and you can get them in a variety of ways. Now, passes are one, but the big ones are injuries inflicted and touchdowns scored. So to say it's hard to get points would be an understatement, when a lot of scores I've seen in these games are maybe 1 or 2 touchdown scores. It feels like in order to get the full experience out of Blood Bowl 2, you'll need to grind a lot, and I'm not sure if it's going to work for everyone. I feel like the game needed to give you somewhat a head start on the process, because that first set of games can be really frustrating. Now, even after your first several games and you've built up your player base a little bit, don't get too attached to your players. You see, players have a bunch of statistics about them, but in particular, note armor value. If they get hit and fail injury rolls in accordance to their armor value, they can get knocked out of the game, injured with permanent lasting effects, or even killed. Yes, you can lose a player permanently in a league. It adds a level of chaos to the game, that's for sure. At any moment, your star player can be turned to Swiss cheese if the opponent gets lucky. Now look, there are chances for you to get out of it by certain off-the-field elements. Buying a medic for your team can change the outcome of a hurt and dead player by a dice roll, of course, and certain events may help you at the start of kickoff. But there's one thing to take note of. Your roster can have up to 16 players, and when you start out, you probably only have enough money for 11 or 12. But if during a game you have less than 11 players who can take the field at any moment, you'll play a man down, or 2, or 3, Games can actually get to 6v5 if the right conditions really lend themselves to brutality. It makes you feel losses of players, which I did enjoy, and you can easily come back from a player or two down by hits of your own or just good strategy. But once it gets down to the area of being 3 down, the game just becomes completely one-sided, and that turns into one-sided fun. However, the game does have a surprising strength, its presentation and its new UI implementation. It seems that a lot of focus was put on this element of the game, and it shows. While it's not perfect, it's definitely a step up from the original Blood Bowl, which was sort of a clunky mess. This interface is easy to understand. You can easily see where characters can move to by clicking on them. There's distinct and readable percentages on your success and failure ratios for actions. Important information that you need to know each turn is displayed easily for you to see. While on the other hand, historical and player information is still available with a tooltip or two. Character models are definitely a strength as well. Seeing the carnage that your player is ready to inflict can help in the overall show that the game will present. The fields are lovely, and overall, it's definitely got a good production value to it. Not to say that everything in the presentation hits 100%. The animations, they're great when they hit. I like the close-up and brutality that the game has to show when a player gets knocked the hell out. On the other hand, however, it can really take you out of the moment with some of the clipping issues that happen. While yes, a little clipping in gameplay is perfectly fine when dealing with performance and whatnot, as I said in my Mad Max review. The problem is, when you focus on the animation part, it becomes a problem. It's easy to see, especially with characters' heads with parts or extras that really give the clipping a bad name. Now look, it's still good in the long run, but there's another reason why you'll get sick of them over time. But I'll get to that in a little bit. The presentation does best with the announcers. They bring life to the players on the field thanks to the main 2 voice actors. These characters do a reasonable job in showing not only excitement, but a good sense of humor rather well, as seen in this clip.
It's the Nagaroth Nightmares, and there's already some controversy. What's going on down there, Bob?
According to our on-field reporter, Jock Strappy, the Dark Elves are outraged by the pre-game wine they've been offered. Apparently, you don't serve Dark Elves corked wine. Looks like another potential disaster for the head coach, Jim.
I can see that from here, Bob. Who drinks a robust red like that from a flute glass? What on earth is going on in the Reichland camp?
Is it game time, Jim?
It certainly is, Bob.
I really did enjoy the actors in this game. They were a strong highlight of the game early on. But I admit that after a while, it started to get old. Sadly, the amount of lines does seemingly drain after a very short amount of time, and I expected more variety out of them over the long haul. They do react to what's going on in-game rather well in situational commentary, but overall, I felt like if there were more added to the game in terms of voice lines, it would go a long way to improving the presentation. But one of the biggest gripes I have about Blood Bowl 2 is specifically this, the lack of customization. Now the board game variant, if you were to play it, could always have house rules implemented to fine-tune the experience and bring more of a general audience in, to make a game that you wanted to play over a period of time. I felt like that Cyanide Studios completely failed to capitalize on what could have easily brought more players into this game. Sure, I understand the idea of pro online leagues having the basic rule set for the sake of balance. Some of these custom rules really do hurt the balance of the game overall. But those who wanted to play a specific variant of the game, or make the game more accessible to them, don't even have the option here. Maybe adjusting certain injury percentages would have made sense, or make it easier to pick up the ball. Maybe let me start with a team that is a bit more customized so I can truly experience what the game has to offer without having to grind through bad luck. Unfortunately, the game fails here, and because it fails here, it makes a niche audience even more niche. In fact, there's a lot of options that I would want here that are missing. The idea of speeding up this slow game is one. Let me speed up or even skip animations to make the game move at a faster pace, as I was mentioning before. The game is slow. Now, you have timers that force you to do things and at least have some pace in making selections. However, a full game can take up to an hour at times. I feel like there could have been things that really have made that a lot faster in terms of gameplay over the long haul. And you see, that's the problem with Blood Bowl. For every strength that the game has in terms of its chess-like strategy, for example, the game drags it down with implementation problems and just overall slowness. Unfortunately, the game never shines in one area, but never necessarily is bad in one area either. It feels average, not mediocre per se, but it doesn't stand out in any way. And unfortunately, in this gaming industry, you have to stand out in at least some way. When it comes down to it, Blood Bowl 2 feels a lot like, well, watching your favorite NFL team on Sunday. When things are going great, you're having fun. You're cheering and enjoying yourself and having a few laughs with buddies, most likely. But when things are going poorly, you're cursing the gods of RNG and of football in general, wondering why you can't seemingly roll yourself out of danger like an R-Wing deflecting lasers left and right. This game definitely can do things for the strategy fan, but on a pure buyability basis, it comes out at a 72 out of 100 for me. Meaning if you're hurting for a game, this could do it for you, but otherwise, wait for a sale. However, this does use my review system for the channel, as you can see here, so there are enhancers that may change this recommendation or not that I'll allude to now. Add 8 to the score if you're a frequent chess player. The game plays like a variant of chess in my opinion, and those chess fanatics will feel right at home here. The top level players will be thinking about the entire game in one single move. Like I said earlier, it can really become a battle of wits when facing another human opponent, attempting to outthink each other at every turn. In terms of strategy, it does that part very well, and especially in the sort of reactionary part of the game. Take off 15 points if you hate random elements in games. Let's face it, Blood Bowl 2 can live on the random number generator at times. While yes, there are skills in game, and you have to plan around strategies regarding the turnover system and when you can fail at any moment. The fact of the matter is, however, if the RNG gods look down on you, you're not going to win. One bad roll can take out your star player from your lineup permanently, and the game does not grant any mercy for those on the wrong end of the dice. If you get frustrated easily, or don't like being so reliant on outside forces, Blood Bowl 2 is not, and I repeat, not the game for you. Take off 5 points if you need some kind of customization to get the best of a game. Again, there's really a lack of customization that I really need to focus on here, that it could have been easily implemented. It would have taken away a lot of the problems the game has from an accessibility standpoint, and I understand that balance may have been sacrificed in terms of gameplay. But if creating your own leagues and both sides agree to the rule changes, why not? It's disappointing, because I don't see that being a hard item to implement. But if you really need something to tweak the system in terms of getting the best out of the game, you're not going to find it here, and it's going to hurt your overall experience. Add 5 if you plan on playing with buddies in a league. Now, if you want a game that you and your buddies can have a really good laugh about and just play an entire season around, Blood Bowl 2 has you covered there. You can share your war stories about what happened on the field or what kind of player you lost. With each team being completely different and having so much that can happen during the season that's variant, you'll have water cooler talk to last you ages. And so yes, this is the kind of game that does well for multiplayer. Anyway, like always, my name is Dragnix, and I thank you for watching this review on orcs, goblins, and elves beating the crap out of each other. If you felt this video was helpful, you can hit that like button, or pass this video to a wide open friend in the end zone, or two, to help spread the information. If you want to see more of me pummeling through an offensive line of games like this, you can click on the subscribe button down below to see more content that I provide. And as always, leave your commentary on my playbook of video and content creation in the comment section below so I can grow as a creator and bring you even better content. I'll see you next time around, provided that an orc captain doesn't come back for revenge for knocking out their star player. Later. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you like this content and want to see more of it, you may want to hit that subscribe button on the left hand side. If you like this video and want to see more of this content, take a look at this video on the left hand side as well. And if you missed my last video, take a look at the right hand side. Once again, thanks for watching, and keep on gaming.